Welcome back to the Red Eye Garage. In today's video, we're going to install this beautiful Ivory steering wheel into the FC. Now I know what you're saying, this isn't an FC steering wheel, and I know, I don't care. I think it's awesome. I think it's going to look good. That's the beauty of Jeeps. You can restore them to factory original, or you can customize them and do whatever you want. So this would be a pickup or truck wagon, the later version, but the columns are all the same spline and diameter, so it's going to fit right in there and look great. Kaiser Willys has all the different wheels for all the different models. They even have a low profile wheel now, you know, to give you more tummy clearance and a little bit more comfort while you're driving. So lots of options there. And this is just the one that I think is going to be great in the truck. In this video, we're going to start assuming you've already removed the wheel. In the last video, you saw me use this beautiful WP300 steering wheel puller from Kaiser Willys, so check out the link in the description if you missed that video. That covers how to remove the steering wheel. One important thing to note is if your steering wheel is directional, meaning you don't want it angled like this when you're going straight, the 3-spoked ones I don't think you really notice, but the ones that are just a single bar across like this wheel, we want to be straight. So as I'm pulling the Jeep in the garage, I drove it back and forth a few times to really get it nice and straight. So on these spoked wheels, it's not as critical, but on the one we're installing, I want it to be, you know, straight across, horizontal while I'm driving. Before you install your wheel, make sure you have everything prepared that you need for your horn. So when I removed the wheel to get the puller in there, I had to remove my horn wiring. So I'm going to take a moment now to reinstall that. My horn cup and horn wiring is in place. I've tried several different things over the years, and I've found just regular old grease. I like it on the threads and the splines. Because if you're not doing it for yourself, do it for the next guy. And you can use anti-seize. Personally, I've found it, if it's a long time, it kind of dries up, and the grease really seems to do well. Now we're going to take the wheel and set it on here. There are a lot of splines and they're very small, so there's several different ways you can get this to go on there. So as I said, I did my best to keep the wheel straight as I pulled it in here, so I'm hoping that I got it right. If you didn't already grease the threaded portion where the nut goes, I would also recommend that you do that now. And this, you can tell the column spring, this is fitting so nicely, and the splines are clean. If your splines are all rusty, take a wire brush, blow them off, get them good and clean, and that will really help as well. But this one wants to kind of eject right off of there. So I'm going to hold it down, start the nut. Now here's a tip. The steering wheel is absolutely a safety item on your vehicle, and you don't want that falling off while you're driving down the road. But I want to take this on a test drive and make sure that when I'm going straight that it's not like this, because that'll drive me nuts. So I'm going to tighten this. This is an 1¼ inch socket, but I'm not going to go crazy. I'm not going to crank it down as if it's the final torque, because if I need to come back and pop this off, turn it a little bit and put it back on, I don't want to fight it. So I'm just going to go to about there. I'm just going to go down the driveway. Don't go out in traffic and be crazy, and definitely, this is just what I'm doing. Use your own judgment. So I'm not going to crank it on super tight, because if I got to pop it back off, I don't want to risk scratching the wheel or having trouble getting it off. So just a light torque. Take it for a test drive. I'm going to take like a dry erase marker. If if it's off a little bit, I'm going to put a little mark where I want it to turn into, so that I can get it nice and straight for the final install. Okay, I'm back from our ride. We got it nice and straight. I was about 1 tooth off, so I just took the nut off. The wheel, I was able to just tap it with my hand. It popped off, turned it, put it back on, and now we're good to go. So I'm going to snug this up nice and snug now. Once that's done, we'll be ready to install the horn hardware. Let's take a moment to look at the items you'll need to make the horn work correctly on this wheel. So obviously you'll need the horn cap or the horn button. These come in black and ivory. You'll need this trim ring or this little steel ring. I'll put part numbers to everything in the description below. This is the inner horn cap, little insert that goes on the bottom of the button. Then these little rubber spacers, you'll need 3 of them. These are sold individually, so really make sure you check your cart, read the item description. So you'll need 3 of these. Then there's these little steel pins. They are sold individually as well. You will need 3 of them. They go in these little holes. And then you need the mounting screws that mounts this ring to the inside of the steering wheel. These are sold in a pack of 3, so you'll need a quantity of 1 for the screws. Step 1, you'll need your horn button and the metal inner cap. This goes inside the hole here. If you will notice, there are 3 little tabs. 1, 2, 3. You may need to bend them in or out depending on the fitment of your horn. So you line up the tabs with the holes. There's 3 of them. There's little notches on the inside, so it's pretty easy to tell where it goes. And then it should just fit in there like that, but not fall out. So if you have to bend those tabs to make it, you want it to be snug, but to be able to just push in with your finger, just like that. For the next step, we're going to prepare the steel ring with the little rubber bumpers. So if you notice, there are dimples in the steel and dimples in the rubber. You want the hole facing inward and towards the top, just like that. There's another little hole on the bottom here, but it's just a half a hole, so you want it to look like that when it's all together. I like to put a little bit of grease on these, help them slide in a little better. This is actually dielectric grease, which is silicone based grease, which is good for rubber. It won't harm the rubber, but it really helps things slide in there. And this is where you actually get your horn action from, like the button movement up and down. So a little bit of movement within those pockets is actually a good thing. So we just slide all of these in like that. So when you're all done, it will look like this. Last step to prep this part is to install the little pins. You can put a little grease on them as well. There's a round side and a flat side. You want the round side to be exposed like that. Just slide them right in. Some of them are tighter than others, but they should just kind of sit in there on their own. So that's what we're left with, and it's ready to install. If you're like me and you really want to know how everything works, if you look at the bottom side of the horn, it has 3 little holes. So when this gets snapped in there, these round pins sit in this hole. And I always wondered what makes the button move up and down. So when you push it, all it's doing, it's kind of hard to show you, is flexing this pin down in the rubber. And when you let go, it returns back up. So the horn really doesn't move a lot, and it completely relies on the flexibility of this rubber to return the horn up after you depress it. Alright, last step is to assemble the horn button onto the wheel. Remember from earlier in the video, we got the wheel nice and straight, we torqued the nut, and now we're ready to install the button. If you have a wagon or a pickup, which is what this wheel was designed for, this is very easy because you're just going to do everything just without any modification. So you put your nut on, you put the horn cap in, you would attach the ring like we're about to in a moment, and then you just snap this on there. But if you're putting this wheel in a CJ2 or an FC150 or CJ5, the way I am right now, we have to make a few modifications. One thing that will not change is installing this ring. So there's 3 holes in the steering wheel, and you want to make sure that when your horn button is installed that your Willys Overland logo is up and down when the steering wheel is straight. So there's a hole at the bottom right here. You want that to line up with this pin. So there's really, you'd have to be way off and you would notice it, but just that's just something to take note of. So then you take one of the 3 little screws, and I like to start them all before I tighten any of them, just like that. And once they're all started, just snug it up. Now these thread into the plastic of the wheel, so you really don't need to, you don't want to crank on them super tight because you could strip them out. So once they're down and snug and there's no wiggle room, then it's good. So our ring is in, all 3 of our little steel pins are in with the round side facing out. Then we would just take our horn button, line it up, and just kind of wiggle it down on there, give it a little pop. Don't hit it hard because this is just plastic and these are expensive. So just wiggle it down on there, nice and easy, and you'll be good to go. This next part, your mileage may vary, but I like to give little tips and talk about issues I've encountered when doing this, because we're just being real and we want everybody to have success, and it could be a frequently asked question. So on these little pins, as I said, the round side faces inward because you want a nice smooth in and out of that button. I had to sand a little bit off the flat side, so don't sand the rounded side, just the flat side, because even when they were pushed all the way back, the little circle it created within that triangle was way too small to fit this down on there. So if that happens to you, you can just pull these out. You could even use a file, or I just used like my edge sander and just kind of rolled them on there a little bit. I mean, we're talking maybe a 1/16 of an inch on each pin, and make sure you do all 3 evenly. And then I was able to kind of wiggle this and snap it right down on. In another video I saw Jason install the same horn button and it looked like his just snapped right on. So maybe there's some variance in these rubber parts or the pins. I don't know. I would definitely start by trying to not do that. If you can get it on without modifying, that'd be great. But I just want to tell you, it's not the end of the world, but you may have to kind of trim it to fit because you want this to be tight, but you have to be able to take it on and off too, and you don't want to have to be prying on this. We don't want to break this beautiful button. So that's just something I encountered, so keep that in mind as you're fitting your button. Now back to the modification part of this video. Since we're talking about using these wheels on different Jeeps, if you buy the wagon wheel and just try to throw it on your CJ, the horn button is not going to fit right with the nut that comes on a factory CJ2 or CJ5. So a CJ nut, the early ones, looks like this. I don't know if it's in focus, but it has a little ridge right there, and that gives you the wrong height for that button. The button won't go down on the whole way. So what you need is a later model flat nut. This one was off a late CJ5, a wagon, or a pickup, and that gives you the right height. It's the same thread and the splines are the same, so it will work. You just have to adjust that, change that nut, because this had the little rubber horn button, this style, and that won't work with this horn button. Another thing I had to do to make this horn work on my FC is to not use this in its stock form. So this one is untouched. This is how it came from the factory. So if you see it has a dome, it's dimpled up, and that was not the right height for what I need to do with this button. So what I had to do was flatten it. So I don't know if you can see that. We'll put these two side by side. So do you see the difference? It's not much, maybe 1/8 of an inch, but I had to flatten that and use that other style nut. That's it. Then this still goes together the exact same way. And you still wiggle this button down on there the exact same way. And now it's in place. Horn works. So that's how you modify this to work on a not Jeep, wagon, or pickup. I'm only adding that because I think these wheels are cool, and I think there's going to be a lot of people who want to use this wheel on a Jeep besides the one that it was intended for. So I'm sorry for the long-winded response, but I hope that's helpful. That is how you install the Ivory wagon and pickup wheel in your Willys Jeep. Thanks for watching. Catch you later.